So can we pause for a moment on this show out of respect for the grief that is now being felt by all those ABC staff, their trauma. Okay, that's enough. So how will Trump's win affect Australia? Number one, the Albanese government is now going to look even more stupid pushing its global warming schemes, its net zero target, its war against fossil fuels. You see, the last time Donald Trump was president, he pulled America out of the Paris Agreement to cut emissions and has promised to do it all again because Biden stupidly signed them back up again. He's also promised to scrap the trillions of dollars that the Biden administration has been throwing away on green schemes, kind of schemes, by the way, that this Albanese government is spending your money on as well.
They've spent trillions of dollars on things having to do with the Green New Scam. It's a scam. And that's caused tremendous inflationary pressures in addition to the cost of energy.
Joining me are Daniel Wild, Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, and Michael Costa, former Labor Treasurer of New South Wales. Daniel Wild, how do you think Trump's win is going to affect the Albanese government, starting with the whole global warming project?
Well, exactly as you said, Andrew, I think net zero is now dead. If it wasn't dead before, it's certainly dead now. A couple of headline points, Andrew. I think that this win has the capacity to be a giant shift to the Western Alliance and the global order, perhaps on a level of that similar to 1980 when Reagan had a big victory. And the revolt of the common man and woman across the Western world against the elites and the ruling class continues, and that's what this was, an emphatic rejection of the political elite in the United States, and we've seen it elsewhere on continental Europe, in the UK, here in Australia with The Voice, so it continues, but certainly with net zero and climate policies, Andrew, which really are to the benefit of China. I mean, net zero is causing the reorientation of global economic supply chains around one of the biggest adversaries to the Western global order, which is the Chinese Communist Party. We should never have signed up to it. Morrison and Frydenberg made a massive mistake in doing so. So I think the victory of Trump will show that we need to have energy sovereignty, national security, and put our nation's interests in the Western Alliance first. And I think that this will be a very positive move in a sensible direction, Andrew.
Yeah, the point you're making about China, of course, is that China doesn't have to cut its emissions. In fact, they've been soaring. It's by far and away the biggest emitter in the world. And we're cutting out a huge risk in the West and transferring some so-called polluting industries to China, which is making hay while we suffer. Michael Costa, what do you make of all that?
Well, I hate to be a wet blanket on all of the euphoria at the moment. With Trump, we've got the best of, obviously, two bad candidates, in my view, and I think there's going to be some real challenges to the global order, just to take the first point that Daniel talked about. And we've got the issue of Ukraine, what his position is going to be on Ukraine. Certainly he's going to be strong on Israel, and I worry about Taiwan as well. But in terms of the question you asked, Andrew, for the Albanese government, I think there are some lessons here. I don't think it's going to be on energy policy. I think they're all locked into the net zero. I think it's going to be on cost of living, and that's where energy policy really does play a factor, and I think they're so foolish that they haven't recognised that. And also this notion that somehow an interest rate cut, small one coming up, is somehow going to save the Albanese government, I think is proven by this election to be a nonsense. Remember, there were significant interest rate cuts in the US before this particular vote and made no difference. And there's a couple of other small issues that the government's playing with that I think did come to the fore in the issue. This notion you can tax unrealised capital gains, which was part of the Democrats' policy, went down like a lead balloon, and that's the Albanese government is trying to do that at the moment as we speak. There's also this issue with the HEX payments. They think that's an election winner. Remember, Biden, forgave or attempted to forgive huge amounts of student debt in the US. That didn't seem to work. So I think there's some challenges there. But I agree with the notion that we've reached peak identity politics, wokeism, and really that's not a winner for anybody. But the isolationism is a worry, and we've got to look at our defence budget. We can't rely on the United States, and I think the next election ought to have as a key centre component the pathetic state of our defence forces and the inability of this government to fund projects and look after our own defence.
I have to agree with that last point. Daniel. I would love to think that Trump would be a Reagan or a Thatcher in terms of international, but there is an isolationist program. The point, of course, is that we didn't have much of a choice. We had a candidate who was weak on Ukraine versus a candidate who was weak on Israel. Pick your poison. But I do have one hope that there are people around him like Jack Keane, who's a regular on this show, General Jack Keane, who Trump tried to make his defence minister twice, defence secretary twice when he was first president. Jack Keane is red hot on defending Ukraine, seeing part of a wider world war, and maybe wiser heads will prevail. But can we really expect it?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, Andrew. I mean, firstly, I think Trump Mark II will be very different to Trump Mark I. He acknowledged that some of the people he appointed in his first administration weren't the best people. It's likely he's going to have the Senate and the Congress. The other thing, Andrew, is there are no more never Trump Republicans. They all threw their toys out of the cot. They're in the Democrats, and, well, how's that working out for them? So he's not going to be thwarted in the way that he was in his first 2 years as president. So I think you're going to see a very emboldened Trump. I think he's also someone who spoke about the need to unify the country, and he's probably learnt a lot, to be honest, over the last 8 years. So in terms of the Western order, Trump has always been very solid on that. I understand the point about isolationism, but if you look at the speeches that he gave in Poland, for example, in his last time he was president, he clearly has an understanding of the centrality of Western values and Western civilization, which is the kind of leadership we need out of an American leader. Is he perfect? No, but he may very well be the leader that we need for the kind of times that we're living in.
Yeah, well, given you don't have a perfect choice about this kind of thing, Michael, I just wonder whether we did actually end up by far and away with a better candidate.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt of that. And it became more and more obvious during the campaign that Kamala Harris was clueless. I mean, those word salads. And I've got to say, I suppose the most significant component in terms of their out-of-touchness was the way that they try to demonise, Trump as Hitler. I mean, that was an insult to all those Holocaust victims. It tried to put Donald Trump on the same level as Adolf Hitler. I mean, they deserved to lose just on that alone. I mean, it was a disgusting. I've never seen anything so disgusting in politics. And smacked the
great line,
desperation.
Michael Costa, Daniel Wild. Thank you very much to you both.